I want you to take a second right now and think about your workplace.
Hmm.
Like when you walk through the doors or log on for the day, does your employer care if you are safe at work? Or do they care if you are healthy?
It really sounds like a trick question when you put it that way.
It does. Because you would assume safety and health are just, well, two sides of the exact same coin.
Right.
But the reality is the system's designed to keep a scaffolding from collapsing on your head, and the system's designed to keep your blood pressure from spiking. They are completely divorced from one another.
Completely.
And worse, they're almost never handled by the same people in your company.
Yeah, and that distinction completely shapes how we experience our working lives. I mean, we tend to blur the words together into a single phrase, health and safety.
Right, like it's one department.
Exactly.
So,
But operationally, legally, and culturally, they are entirely different worlds. And the friction between those two worlds is causing massive systemic failures in how companies care for their employees.
which is the core focus of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're looking at this really fascinating 2026 qualitative study.
Yeah, the one published in the Health Promotion Journal of Australia.
That's the one, by Liu, Karanicas, and Carroll. And our mission here is to explore why Australian workplaces, and really workplaces globally, are struggling so hard to combine occupational health and safety, which we'll just call OHS, with workplace health promotion, or WHP.
Right. And to even begin diagnosing the problem, we have to look at how those two disciplines actually operate on the ground.
Let's break those definitions down, because I think people get them confused.
Oh, all the time. So according to the paper, OHS is an incredibly well-established, legally enforced field.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses heavily on reducing ergonomic, psychosocial, and material risks. So think of physical hazards on a factory floor, chemical spills in a lab, or, biological dangers in a hospital.
But really obvious, immediate dangers.
Exactly. It's the rigid compliance-based system designed to make sure you do not get physically injured or killed while doing your job. But workplace health promotion, or WHP, is an entirely different beast. It's viewed as a relatively emerging service area, and crucially, it is mostly voluntary.
Voluntary, right. That's a huge distinction.
Yeah. WHP focuses on individual-based health education and behavior changes. So we're talking about things like improving health literacy, offering diet and exercise programs, or providing access to counseling.
Basically, OHS is making sure the office roof doesn't cave in on you, and WHP is making sure you don't have a massive heart attack while sitting at your desk.
That is a perfect analogy.
I mean, one is about managing external environmental risks imposed on you by the company, and the other is about encouraging internal individual lifestyle choices.
That perfectly captures the dynamic.
Yeah.
And the demand from workers to actually merge these two things is overwhelming right now.
Oh, totally. The study actually references this recent cross-sectional data, and it's wild. When workers were asked what they actually need to function well, 49% said they wanted frequent breaks.
Almost half.
Yeah. And 33% wanted more training, and 19% specifically asked for dedicated mental health support. The workforce is basically begging for comprehensive well-being.
They are. But the study notes that only 25% of Australian workplaces currently implement integrated approaches that actually combine OHS and WHP.
Just 25%. That is a staggering disconnect. I mean, if the expected benefits of combining these higher productivity, lower healthcare costs, less absenteeism are so wildly obvious, why isn't everyone doing it?
Well, figuring out that why requires looking at how the researchers actually extracted this information.
Right.
They didn't just look at injury reports. They went directly to the people running these departments. And the study design was underpinned by what's called the Knowledge to Action Framework, or KTA.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is the KTA framework?
Basically, instead of just gathering abstract theories, this framework is an iterative process. It's about taking existing knowledge, synthesizing it, and figuring out how to translate it into practical, on-the-ground tools.
Got it. So who did they actually talk to?
Using that approach, they collected data between October 2024 and March 2025. They conducted 3 online focus groups and 40 individual interviews.
And who were the participants? Just everyday workers?
No, these were professionals, specifically OHS professionals, health promotion professionals, occupational health nurses, and employers across Australia.
Okay, I want to pause right there and look at the sample size because this really stood out to me.
Yeah.
They interviewed exactly 47 participants in total, If you're trying to understand a massive nationwide disconnect in the Australian workforce, why only talk to 47 people? Like, why not send a comprehensive survey to 10,000 middle managers and get some hard statistical data?
What's fascinating here is that a survey of 10,000 people is fantastic if you just want to know that a program failed. It gives you a clean percentage.
Right, like 80% failure rate or whatever.
Exactly. But a multiple-choice survey rarely tells you the nuanced, messy, highly political human reasons why it failed. Qualitative research is about depth, not breadth.
So they were looking for the why, not the what.
Precisely. By deliberately targeting those 47 specific experts and sitting them down for in-depth interviews, and then analyzing their responses using this thematic inductive approach with in vivo software, they captured the hidden stories.
The stuff people don't put on official form.
Exactly. They heard the whispered frustrations, the departmental turf wars, the fundamental misunderstandings that you just cannot capture in a checkbox survey.
I guess that makes sense. If you put the heads of rival factions in a room, even a virtual one, and ask them why they can't work together, you're going to get a much more honest assessment of the friction points.
And they actually reached what researchers call thematic saturation.
Meaning what?
It means they kept analyzing these deep, rich interviews until literally no new information or excuses were emerging. Those 47 experts essentially mapped out the entire anatomy of this corporate dysfunction.
And the very first piece of dysfunction they uncovered is a massive culture clash. I mean, reading the actual quotes from the study is wild because it becomes painfully obvious that these professions speak completely different languages.
They really do.
You have OHS professionals openly confessing things like, we're not really trained very well on the health side of things at all.
Yeah, that quote is very telling.
They acknowledge that their daily duties are almost exclusively safety-focused, even though the word health is literally the second word in their job title.
Meanwhile, the health promotion professionals are equally lost when they cross the aisle. They struggle with basic OHS terminology.
Right.
They don't understand the rigid, legalistic frameworks of risk management or occupational hygiene because their training is rooted in behavioral science, not engineering or compliance.
It honestly reminds me of having plumbers and electricians trying to build a house together, but they can't read each other's blueprints.
That's a great way to put it.
The safety professionals, the plumbers in this scenario, are looking at the rigid structure. They're viewed as technician-based and authoritative. Their whole job is top-down enforcement.
Wear your hard hat. Don't step over this yellow line.
Right. Follow the safety protocol or you're fired. But the health promotion professionals, the electricians, are looking at the energy flow. They use what the study calls softer skills.
They definitely see their job as taking employees on a collaborative journey toward wellness.
And that fundamental difference in approach creates an immediate wall, doesn't it?
It really does. OHS professionals treat the worker almost like a valuable machine part that needs to be protected from external damage so the factory can keep running.
Wow. Yeah.
But health promotion professionals treat the worker as a complex, autonomous organism that needs internal maintenance and education. And because they view the worker so differently, they just can't agree on how to help them.
Which bleeds directly into the second major hurdle the study identified, the legislative split. These two departments aren't just culturally separated, they are legally segregated.
Totally. They sit in entirely different government agencies with entirely different mandates.
So how does that play out in the workplace?
Well, OHS is heavily legislated. There are strict frameworks, mandatory reporting requirements, and severe financial and sometimes criminal penalties for non-compliance.
So if an employer fails to provide a safe physical environment, they get sued or shut down.
Exactly. But workplace health promotion has no overarching legislative framework setting minimum requirements. It's basically treated as an optional perk.
And because it's optional, it runs headfirst into a brutal timeline of benefit.
Oh, the timeline issue is huge.
There's this incredibly blunt quote in the text from one of the participants. They said, if you are unsafe, you could lose your job, but being unhealthy, not necessarily.
Employers are making a ruthless calculation there.
They really are. If they fix a broken staircase today, they prevent a lawsuit tomorrow. The return on investment is immediate. But if they invest heavily in, say, a nutrition seminar or a stress reduction workshop...
They might save on employee healthcare costs or turnover 5 years from now.
Right. And that timeline problem feeds directly into the nightmare of evaluation, doesn't it?
It's a complete nightmare. OHS professionals are used to dealing with tangible, binary metrics. You can pull up data on the number of chemical spills or the days since the last slip and fall. It's literally a math equation.
But evaluating WHP is a whole different ballgame.
Right, because evaluating the success of a workplace health promotion program is incredibly difficult when you are dealing with deeply personal, highly protected health data.
Because workers are absolutely terrified of sharing their personal health data with the company that pays their salary.
And rightfully so in many cases.
The study brings up the very real fear of stigma. Workers worry that if they participate in a company health screening and management finds out they have a high BMI or a history of severe anxiety,
They might be quietly excluded from certain tasks.
exactly, passed over for promotions or even targeted during layoffs.
And here's the catch-22. If workers refuse to participate in the wellness programs out of privacy concerns, the health professionals have no data.
And if they have no data, they can't evaluate the program.
Right. And if they can't evaluate the program and prove a return on investment, the executives holding the budget will inevitably slash the funding.
Wow. And this tension between the departments doesn't just result in them ignoring each other. In some cases, it turns openly hostile.
It gets really messy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The study revealed that OHS professionals often actively demonize the WHP programs.
Yeah, there is a deep philosophical divide here that causes real animosity. Many safety professionals believe that employers use health initiatives, things like employee assistance programs or mindfulness apps, as a corporate scapegoat.
A scapegoat to avoid fixing actual problems, the ultimate blame game.
Exactly.
The safety professional looks at an exhausted, burned-out worker and sees a structural failure. They say, the job design is toxic, the workload is physically impossible, and the shift hours are destroying their sleep. But instead of fixing those expensive, systemic issues, the employer brings in a health promotion expert who essentially tells the worker, you need to fix yourself. Here's a seminar on eating better and building personal resilience.
The OHS professionals feel that health promotion is being weaponized to shift the burden of responsibility.
Victim blaming.
Yes. Instead of the employer taking responsibility for a broken, dangerous work environment, the blame is placed directly onto the shoulders of the individual worker for just not coping well enough.
So the safety professionals push back against these wellness programs because they view them as a cheap distraction from structural safety flaws.
That's exactly how they see it.
When you lay it all out like that, it sounds completely dysfunctional. The safety people think the health people are victim blaming, the health people think the safety people are rigid, and the bosses don't want to pay for any of it.
It's a tough situation.
Is there any way this integration is actually working?
Well, the researchers did identify a few current trends where integration is starting to take hold. Interestingly, the COVID-19 pandemic acted as a massive catalyst.
Oh, that makes sense.
It forced a global spotlight onto mental health and psychosocial hazards. Suddenly, the line between external safety and internal health vanished, which rapidly accelerated the demand for integrated approaches.
But even with that massive global catalyst, the study notes that integration is still failing in most places because departments like human resources, which usually handles wellness and safety, operate in absolute silos.
They physically and organizationally do not speak to each other. Though company size plays a huge role here.
How so?
Large companies tend to integrate better simply through brute force. They have the sheer capital, the dedicated resources, and the personnel to create overlaying committees.
So small companies are just out of luck.
Not entirely. The data shows small businesses can successfully integrate these approaches if they have strong, highly involved management and a genuinely supportive, great business culture.
The context of the work matters immensely, too. The study specifically highlighted the remote mining industry in Australia.
Oh, that's a fascinating example.
Yeah, these workers are flown out to extremely remote, isolated environments, far away from their families and typical support structures. In that context, basic health promotion isn't just a nice corporate perk, it is a fundamental requirement.
Right, for their survival, sanity, and physical safety. The environment basically forces the integration.
That brings up an interesting dynamic regarding employer support. You might assume that a shift toward holistic well-being has to be championed by the CEO or the board.
You'd think so, but the data tells a completely different story.
Middle managers are actually the ones desperately trying to hold it all together.
Because they're the ones who actually see the daily grind, the burnout, and the physical toll on their teams, so they deeply support integration.
And top-level managers.
Top-level managers, on the other hand, are often described in the study as actively waiting for health promotion initiatives to fail.
That is incredibly cynical.
It is. But executives are structurally incentivized to be output-focused. When a worker takes an hour away from the assembly line or their desk to attend a wellness seminar, the C-suite views that as an immediate, measurable loss of productivity and a drain on payroll.
Because they struggle to see the invisible prevented costs of a burnout that didn't happen.
Exactly. It's hard to measure a non-event on a balance sheet.
Okay, that is a lot to digest. We have a culture war between safety and health, a legal system that only punishes physical negligence, and executives who secretly want wellness programs to fail to save a quick buck.
It's a mess.
So how does the study suggest we even begin to fix this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it demands a fundamental cultural shift in how we conceptualize the workplace.
Okay.
The study argues that safety can no longer be viewed as the final destination. A lack of injury is not the goal. Safety needs to be repositioned as merely one function of managing risks to ensure overall worker health.
We have to stop separating the human being into a physical worker and a mental worker. But merging those roles creates a massive immediate risk based on everything we just discussed. If OHS professionals inherently lack health and behavioral training, what happens when an employer suddenly mandates that a safety technician is now responsible for a worker's mental health?
The potential for harm there is significant.
I'd imagine.
An untrained safety professional might use inappropriate, compliance-driven language around health behavior change. You just cannot regulate a person's mental health the way you regulate the speed of a forklift.
Yeah, if you try, you're just going to create an environment of intense stigma and fear.
And resentment.
I actually want to push back on this entire premise for a second and really look at the ethical boundary of employer responsibility.
Let's do it.
Because the further we go down this road of holistic integration, the blurrier the line gets. If I have severe cardiovascular disease or chronic anxiety, there are a million contributing factors to that. My genetics, my diet, my relationship with my spouse, how much I drink on the weekends. Why should any of that become my boss's problem to solve? Isn't there a point where an employer should just be responsible for paying me and making sure the building doesn't collapse and my health is my own private business?
That is the exact fear preventing progress. And the employers in this study explicitly voice this exact concern.
See, I'm not the only one.
No. The complexity of human health is daunting. Employers are generally willing to manage a tangible safety risk. They will gladly buy you an ergonomic chair or a safer saw blade.
Right.
But managing a chronic illness or a complex mental health challenge feels like crossing a massive ethical boundary into personal territory that they are neither equipped nor legally willing to handle.
So how do we bridge that gap without turning the HR department into my primary care physician?
The researchers argue we have to move completely away from what they call traditional WHP.
Traditional WHP being what exactly?
Yeah. Traditional WHP is the lazy approach. It's HR sending out a generic email with a link to a meditation app, or putting a bowl of apples in the break room and calling it a wellness program.
Because it doesn't actually address the work environment.
Exactly. The solution is adopting a systems thinking approach.
Which means targeting work-related factors through the entire employment cycle, rather than just treating the symptoms after the fact.
You've got it. It means focusing heavily on job design from the moment a person is onboarded to the day they retire.
Integration as a linkage process.
Exactly. And the paper provides a fantastic, tangible scenario of what this looks like in practice. Imagine a social services worker whose job requires them to deal with highly aggressive, potentially dangerous clients.
Okay, in a traditional siloed approach, what happens to them?
The health promotion department steps in and offers that worker resilience training.
Oh, I see.
They give them coping skills, maybe a stress ball, and a hotline to call to deal with the trauma of being repeatedly screamed at or threatened.
Which goes right back to the safety department's critique. You are just putting a Band-Aid on the worker so they can survive a toxic environment. You're fixing the person, not the problem.
Exactly. But a true integrated systems thinking approach links OHS and WHP together to fundamentally change the reality of the job.
How so?
First, you redesign the work itself. You change the company protocol so the worker is empowered to call the aggressive client over the phone or meet them in a secure facility instead of visiting them alone in their home.
So that's the OHS risk control. You eliminate the physical danger entirely.
Yes. And then you link that structural safety change with the health promotion side.
Ah, okay.
You link the new protocol with targeted WHP, providing the coping skills, the debriefing sessions, and the mental health support to process the underlying stress of the field.
So the environment structurally protects them from harm, And the health promotion actively supports their internal well-being. It's a complete paradigm shift. Integration isn't just throwing a mandatory yoga class into the middle of a safety briefing. It is a fundamental redesign of how we treat human beings as complex systems at work.
Which perfectly leads us to the final conclusions the researchers drew from these 47 experts.
Let's hear the final verdict.
The paper distills down to a few core realities. The incredibly limited implementation of integrated approaches in Australia, and likely elsewhere, is directly caused by a lack of cohesive policy emphasis.
Because the government isn't forcing them to do it.
Right, and there are deep structural, professional knowledge gaps between the people doing safety and the people doing health.
The culture clash.
Exactly. Plus, there are massive unresolved concerns over how to actually implement and evaluate these programs without violating employee privacy.
So what's the immediate action required?
According to the authors, urgent educational opportunities.
Yeah.
We need university-level curriculum innovation to train a new generation of OHS professionals who understand both structural safety and behavioral health. And we need to rapidly educate current employers to close that gap.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? The next time your company rolls out a shiny new wellness initiative or implements a strict new safety protocol, look closely at who designed it and how it functions. Ask yourself, is this program actually integrated into the daily design of your job? Is it structurally protecting you from burnout while supporting your health? Or is it just a Band-Aid sitting in an HR silo trying to put the burden of surviving a poorly designed job back onto your shoulders?
And as we move forward, there is a vital, perhaps uncomfortable reality to consider.
What's that?
As our jobs become increasingly cognitive and the line between work and life continues to blur in the digital age, the future of occupational safety will not be about hard hats, harnesses, or physical barriers.
No, it's going to be entirely about holistic health, stress management, and mental longevity.
Exactly. But if we demand that our employers become legally and functionally responsible for our overall holistic well-being, will the ultimate price of a perfectly safe workplace eventually be the total loss of our medical privacy?